Kind of you to join us for another enrichment with the gifted guy. We're going to continue to talk about executive functioning skills. Executive functioning skills are the skills that we use every day in order to accomplish things. Sometimes we may use these executive functioning skills to accomplish an immediate goal. Sometimes it might be a long term goal. But regardless, we're usually stringing along several of these skills together in order to accomplish this. For example, if we're making a meal, we might use time management to make sure that we're not burning everything. We might use planning to make sure we have the ingredients that we need. There are all sorts of skills that we have to use to put all that together in order to accomplish our meal. We've been talking about the idea of successful collaboration and some things that we need when it comes to group work. And so, collaboration is one of those. How could we work together in order to be successful? We need to show flexibility because when we're working with others, we're not always going to agree with others, and there are many voices to consider. So, how can we be flexible with the voices that we are hearing? The third skill I want to talk about today is the idea of conflict management. And there's going to be conflicts when you're working in a group. Sometimes these conflicts are very tiny, sometimes they're ginormous. And so the question becomes, how can we make sure they stay tiny and cut those off before they become ginormous? And so we're going to talk about three different things that you can do when it comes to conflict management. First and foremost is we want to make sure that we're solving these problems ourselves. No matter if we're third graders or seniors in high school, being able to solve these problems yourself goes a long way in your ability to work in a group. So, in other words, we don't need to run off and tell the teacher every time something goes wrong. Can we solve these problems internally first and then only go to the teacher as a last resort? So, again, here are some skills to consider. The first one of these is initiative when it comes to social problem solving. So, for example, we want to take those conflicts when they're tiny before they grow into something unmanageable and try to come up with a workable fix. So, if you have a student, a member of your group that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, rather than ignoring that and letting resentment build up as that person continues not to do things, being willing to have that conversation with that particular group member. Like, why aren't you where we need to be? This is where our goal is. How can we help get you back on task? And so making sure that we're having proactive conversations rather than reactive conversations, especially reactive when they've become too large to handle ourselves. We also can have expectations or norms. So, in other words, what do we expect of people for this particular task? What do we expect of one another? So that everyone's kind of on the same page? A lot of conflicts happen because one person has high expectations, another person has low expectations, and they're both meeting those expectations, not understanding that the other one has completely different set of expectations. So we want to make sure that we're on the same page, say this is what we expect from one another. These are the norms, way we should behave, and then making sure, and then once people are aware of those, they're going to be more able to follow those expectations and because they're aware of them. The second skill to consider is that of accountability. So in a group, overall as a group you're accountable, but within that group you have individuals that are accountable for individual tasks. So we have to make sure that people know what their tasks are, what are their specific, either if there are specific roles assigned and what people have to do, or there are specific tasks. You're supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that, they're supposed to do this. So when that becomes clear, then it's so much clearer to have accountability, because when A doesn't get done, you can point to the person who didn't do it and say, what's going on? And you should approach this like a, why haven't you done this? But instead, it should be like, what can we do to help get you where you need to be? Because the group wants to be at the same place. So what can we do to help you, or what can we do to make you aware of that, or what resources can we provide for you? But making sure that we are not playing the blame game, but instead what we're doing is we're making sure when we keep people accountable, we're saying, hey, we need you to do this so that we can be successful. And the accountability becomes the fact that they want the group to be successful as well. The last one I want to talk about is troubleshooting. And troubleshooting is coming up with the solutions yourself rather than relying on an adult figure or someone else to do that for you. So here's a good rule of thumb. For every problem that comes up or the group brings up, you should brainstorm 3 solutions for that problem. So, for example, if the technology is not working, well, what are three different things we could do? Well, maybe we could shift the technology responsibility to another person who knows, maybe who's more familiar with this type of technology. Or maybe you could work together to all figure it out together. Or maybe you could switch to a different set of technology that's not causing problems. So sometimes what happens when you're in a group is we get into a complaining, and we just complain about things that are going wrong, and we never present solutions. So rather than just make a complaint, make sure then the group has a conversation about what are possible solutions for this particular complaint. What can we do to solve this ourselves? Again, you should only be using the authority figure as a last resort. And so being able to figure out these problems for yourself goes a long way in you being able to be successful in your group work. So again, those are three things that you can use in order to manage your conflicts. Making sure that you solve small problems before they become big. That becomes an initiative in social problem solving. Making sure that there's accountability, but that accountability is not a blame game. That accountability is making sure that people are aware what their roles and tasks are. And then third, how do we troubleshoot? So how do we come up with solutions rather than just pointing out problems?